Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz. We are here on a Friday night as we count down to the big game tonight. The Pies versus the Swans in Adelaide should be an absolute beauty. Obviously, the Pies meant to be one of those teams that are climbing up the ladder this year, and we know obviously the superpower that they have through that midfield. And the Swans, even though they are slightly undermanned, didn't seem to make any difference when they played the Roos last week, and obviously the grand final runners-up and a very good team. So it'll be an interesting countdown for about 40 minutes away from that. Before we sort of jump into everything and your questions, and thank you to already Houdini in particular has been jumping on those comments. As always, check us out on all our social media platforms, in particular the YouTube, Spotify. Get in touch with us via X, as many of you guys always do. Supercoach Insider 100 or Swizz 26 for me directly. All right, I will start off or run through these latest teams, and that'll help confirm some of the questions that we've got going, because there's obviously been a few late changes which always change everything. So tonight we do have the Pies versus the Swans. Nothing late by the looks of things for that, which is always good, unlike Geelong, who usually make a late change. Allen is the sub for the Pies. For the Swans, good and bad. Sheldrick is the sub for them, if anybody's still holding on to him. But Cleary was the one that we were hoping to avoid, and he has, which is great news for the lot of us. Roberts is starting on the bench, which is interesting. So hopefully he goes tonight. But Cleary is one that they have been looking forward to, especially last year. VFL form was absolutely through the roof, and if he'd started the year, he probably would have started in my side. So somebody to watch again tonight, and hopefully he becomes a downgrade option for us next week. So watch him closely. He is number 33, guys. So one, two, as I said, hopefully it becomes a downgrade. North Melbourne Suns, we know what's going on there. Nothing's changed as far as what we're concerned. Fino Sutherland is back. For some people who are debating between trading him out or keeping him, and there is a bit of a discussion there with, say, Lawler. The Blues and Eagles, nothing real different there from that game. The big one is Matt Carroll. Hopefully, there's no subvest for him, the number 32. And Clay Hall, obviously, there's a lot of chat about, and I did chat about him on Wednesday night, the fact that it was Tim Kelly that was the one getting dropped. As I think halfway through the pod, everybody started confirming that. So I thought he would be, and that has happened. So I do like Clay, especially the fact they have made way for him. The worry is obviously Hutchison coming in. The fact he's on an interchange bench, you wouldn't expect Clay Hall to be named sub, but just have a kind of a backup plan for that. The Bulldogs Lions, not a lot to talk about that. They're pretty solid in where they're going, but this was the big one, the Essendon game in Perkins and Setterfield. There on the emergency is Elijah Sardis. So if those who have held the 2 weeks and now looking like holding 3, you'd think with the news now that Parrish has actually had another setback, looks like he's going to be out for a further month. It looked like this was Sardis just to come back in and get a lot of midfield time, but they have got the experience at Setterfield. So it'd be interesting to see if and when Sardis breaks back into that side. You'd expect him to probably come back next week, because they do have the back-to-back road trips. In saying that, anything can happen. So probably frustrating for those owners there. Now, onto the actual games where we do have the updated teams. Richmond and Fremantle. Yes, Young, Swilkowski, and Darcy is in, which means there was a bit of talk about getting dropped. Was Young Dudley could still potentially be a sub risk this week. I know a lot of people are looking at him. Probably does come down to Warner versus Dudley. So probably one maybe to watch. They do have Banfield who can play up in that forward line. That's frustrating. Out for Richmond is Armstrong, who's out for about 12 weeks, I heard. So Jonty Ford, the key forward, makes his debut. But the big one is Sammy Lawler. We're hoping it's only just a short-term thing. Obviously after watching him score last week, he's going to get forward status. I think he's a bigger hold than even if Foss is playing. If you've got the cover, and you probably do now if you've held, say, somebody like Lindsay, it probably does make things a little bit easier. The only issue there with the Melbourne setup is Lindsay could be a sub candidate, which would be awful again for our teams. Saints for the Giants, an interesting one here. because Harry Boyd is back, but he's on the emergency. So those people who are trying to loophole need to be watching that because that could spell trouble for you guys if he was, for whatever reason, a late in. My man continues to hold his spot. And where is Hasty? There it is. Hasty's in there. So I'm pretty happy with that. For the Giants, nothing really changed there. It goes Brett Daniels with that injury. So Harvey Thomas comes in. Maybe a little bit of watch on there of Harvey Thomas. And then Port and Hawthorn, and then Warple is back for Day. So it's sort of a like to like, which is annoying because a few people were looking at Cam McKenzie. Josh Ward's the one that's currently named to start. So if you want that mid-pricer, Ward is like 50K cheaper than McKenzie. So that is what is happening with the teams, guys. So some important stuff there. And I already see a few people talking about the whole idea about this whole starter situation. So we will get into a little bit more of that in a moment. I'll put up my team and I'll talk about my confirmed change, and then we'll get straight into your questions because that's what we're here for on a Friday night. So after a lot, I thought the easy one was a Driscoll to Hall for me. Like I said it the other night, I expected Tim Kelly to be dropped if Mini McWalter was serious about his side. And he was. He set the tone. I know a lot of the West Coast supporters are pretty happy about that because Simpson just refused to drop some of those senior blokes, and McWalter had the chance to put a stamp on his team and set standards, and he has absolutely done that. Clay Hall, the fact that he was playing the bulk CBAs last week, so only the two rucks played more CBAs than him. So that gives me confidence that they want him in the midfield. He's a great size about him. He's about, I think it's 188 or 190. Correct me on that, but he's that big body midfielder, and it makes sense for them to get time into him. He won the ball, he shoveled it out by hand. Obviously for a young fella, there's question marks on some aspects of his game, but West Coast, it's not like they're going to be challenging for a final spot this year, so it just makes sense for them to give him game time and sort of try to start building that team around Harley Reid. Like if Harley Reid's any chance of staying, I think they've got to kind of sell this as the sort of young fellas that are going to come through with you. And I think again, Harley Reid looked good in that half back. It probably gave him some confidence. And if I'm West Coast, I wouldn't be changing that. You want Harley Reid happy and getting the ball, and we've seen this with all the other rookie players that have come in, Sheasel, Dacos, McKercher. They go back on half back, and it is easy to find some easy pill. He can use some of his skills and get involved in the game and hopefully take some of the play on. So, and that's what he did last week. If you're West Coast, I'm probably not changing that up too quickly. So you've got somebody like Hall in there. The only worry is sort of maybe Hutchinson, but does Hutchinson just kind of maybe rotate? He can play on the outside as well. So, I'm going to back Hall in for that reason. Things can change as easy as next week, but so that's there. And then the big debate for me was Merrett versus Brayshaw, and that has been on my mind all week. So I've gone through every stat that I could potentially go through and stuff. And so this is Brayshaw's last few years. Surprisingly, it's actually better than what maybe a few people think. So pretty consistent with the games. Some of those seasons were 22 rounds. Now, obviously, we've moved to the sort of 23 rounds for the teams. So I got to go back to 2021 where he sort of missed a couple of games in there. And then, he just plays. Averages are pretty high. Like the 111.8 year, he was on track for a slightly higher. Just had a couple, I think, poor games near the end. But he's been around that 110 mark for a while. So pretty consistent. Obviously, Merrett's is better than that. He's the 115. Did have the year in 2022 where Brayshaw nearly got him and probably should have got him. And then obviously the last couple of years have been really good. The last couple of years, again, his consistency on field has been pretty close. So I was looking at that going, slightly better. Merrett is slightly more expensive, but we know that's obviously the case. But then you kind of look at more recency, and now Merrett, who's now 29, and Brayshaw, who's coming right in his prime at 25. So if you look at Merrett's scores since the bye last year, and his ceiling is great, but he does drop in that odd game, and that's why we do sometimes able to pick him up cheaper. He used to obviously start slow, but so you see scores of 135, 145, had the 145 this year, another 135 in there. But that odd game, the 78, the 82, the 74, the 89, there are some more games being dropped under, and that's also the Bombers who aren't performing that well. Yeah, they obviously do have some winnable games coming up with West Melbourne potentially this week, West Coast next week, a couple of games up against Richmond. By the Richmond games, I kind of do want him on my side. I just think there's a chance that he could still drop back a little bit. Like he should get his 114 break even this week, but that 145 then cycles out. So if it's not anything above 120, there's a lot of pressure for him to go big against West Coast, which he could. But even if he goes big, he might just stay at a similar price. But I think this is also, even though it's not completely old, you start hitting that, that 29, you don't have the support around you with Caldwell anymore because he'll be out. And he's also been playing a little bit more up forward. He's late in games, he's late in quarters, he's playing down back just to, stop the rot. And that was a big issue we talked about pre-season where Essendon don't want to give those red time goals. So to compare it to Brayshaw since that bye period. So after the bye against the Dogs, the 73, 134 and 85 was a bit of a slow start. But then since then, he's just been absolutely killing it. He's only had the one score under 100 since that market, those 3 137s in a row, the 147, the 2 130s already this year. And I think we're actually now starting to see a bit of the change in the guard. And it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe they kind of nearly level out this year. And maybe by next year, it's Brayshaw is probably, it wouldn't surprise me if he actually outstarts scoring Merrett. You've got to think Brayshaw's, just hit 25 years old. And Freo should definitely win more games than Essendon this year. I think something's horribly gone wrong from an Essendon point of view. And Longmuir wouldn't probably have a job if that doesn't pan out that way. So, after sort of a lot of thought into it and sort of breaking down, especially from that bye periods onwards, I've said round 17 there, but it's actually the bye period onward. Brayshaw's actually has got him. The only argument then was for me going, do I want a captain from a different team, which is fine, but then at the same time, now with Caldwell out and probably the lack of support, surely if a team has a tagger, it's going towards Merrett because there's really no one else to tag with Essendon. Where Freo, if they're going to tag Sarong, that means Brayshaw's going to get off the train and Hayden Young's just going to go around and do his things, but the bigger body also to help protect them. And then if they do go to Brayshaw, well, Sarong gets off the chain. So I'm backing in the 1-2 punch with the Fremantle combo. So that is the long explanation why I have gone with what I've gone. Now watch Merrett come out and score 150 this week and Brayshaw score like 90 or whatever, but that's what I'm backing in. I think there's enough to say that's what's going on. All right, let's get into your questions. As I said, this is what it's about. We've got about 20 odd minutes to answer or anything you guys have going. Houdini, yes. Holmes, glad I missed the Dawson, but Holmes was absolutely unreal last night. Did mention him the other day. The problem is he's probably the number one guy for Geelong to tag, so you do kind of see an inconsistency with his score. But I like the guy. Probably watch him really closely because Richmond traded out that pick to the following year to get Tom Brown, which I think Tom Brown's going to be a great player. The Vlosten replacement is what Richmond need, but at the same time, Richmond could have had that pick and could have taken Holmes then. And I think could frustrate me going forward, but the way it works out, it might just work out for us anyway. But brilliant game by Max Holmes and led that win 147. And a lot of people do have him, so well done to those people. To Clay or not to Clay, I think I've covered that pretty. I wouldn't necessarily be boosting for Clay, especially if you don't have an option to go. But I think if it's it's a Driscoll. Most people have a Driscoll. It's an easy way to free up 200k. Like there's no real, especially with starters now, because that was the debate. Starters versus Clay, and that's just an easy one that's been solved for us. Clark and hold 50k or Whitfield. So Whitfield, I think. Well, I've said it multiple times. He's probably the number one defender. Clark's in that sort of 5 to 7, 8 range. I think Clark goes on a massive heater coming up. The thing with Clark, his break even is 130. So there is, he could get close to that, if not beat that against Richmond. But he's going to be around the same price next week and potentially the week after, where Whitfield is going up. So I did actually consider Whitfield as part of this Merrett and Brayshaw debate. And the fact that Stewart was a late out last night did probably change a little bit of the thinking around that. But at the same time, as much as I like Lockie Whitfield, I wanted the extra midfielder. So I would actually go Whitfield and spend the extra 50k, mate. That's good. So I've got there. And Confucius says, one who must commits a mistake and doesn't correct it commits another mistake. My Supercoach career in a nutshell. You are not along there, mate. So this is a great question, Rod. Yeah, Merrett versus Whitfield. It also, that really depends on what you need too. So now the fact that we've got Bice there where the defenders were looking a little bit more shaky and you've got the position with me, and this is the only good thing that O'Connell has served me, the fact that, I've got a loophole if my vice captain goes well, which is Tom DeConning, but the fact that I can loophole between Reed and Trainer on some weeks. So that does sort of serve me and gives me 7 defenders. But if you need the extra defender, then Whitfield. If you need the extra midfielder, Merrett. But obviously defenders are more of a premium. But yeah, it does come down to kind of what you need, and what I think Merrett you can potentially get slightly cheaper at some point. He will have a poor game. It is a little while away. Like I kind of wanted him probably earlier, but the JJ game comes up in about 4 or 5 weeks. So you'd expect him to cop an absolute big tag, and the hope is he does lose some value. Even if you've got to get him after the bye, it does miss the Richmond game, which is a bit annoying. But where Whitfield, it just, the attention just doesn't seem to come to him. Like they're going to go to Callahan. They've got so many good players as well. And Whitfield just finds a way to free himself up. I'm sure there'll be a tag game. Whitfield, somebody will finally lock down on him. The problem is the best tagger in the league plays for GWS. So it does make life a lot easier for us if you do have Whitfield. I don't really like chance. Dawson, you absolutely spud. Thanks for ruining my weekend. I did say about Dawson, don't. Well, I know that you're not having a crack at me, mate, but he absolutely spuds the ball. And that was the big thing. He had the 21 touches, kicked the 3 behinds. This whole disposal thing from him, it's been my biggest worry. It's why I stayed away from Dawson. The guy's a gun. He still finds the ball. He's a leader, but he is much better in that sort of quarterback role where he's got time and space, like your Whitfields, your Sinclairs, all those guys. The moment he's gone into that sort of midfield, and I've said this multiple times, there was an injury issue with it last year, but still some of it is that less time that he has to dispose the ball. Even though the fact he's kicking to the 3-headed monster, he does have a tendency to butcher the ball, and he's one of the biggest butchers in the league. So it does like that. The standout, I think I said last Wednesday, was the Essendon game, where that should have been an old Dawson would have got 150 in that, and now he just can't get the big seal, and it's because he just doesn't kick it properly. Right. Hope Bice goes 130. Spill's getting a tattoo if he does. I love that. I wonder if it is actually true, because some people have been talking up the Bice vice captain, which I think is absolutely crazy. But hey, things have panned out before. So let's see if I can actually see. If we go all coaches here, let's see what the vice captains are saying to us. So 20% is on DeConning. I think a few would have used it last night. And the popular captains. What's that? There's actually it's pretty split between a lot of the captains. You got like your DeConnings and Sarongs, McRae's, Cherries, whatnot. But let's have a look here. Let's see if I can find the Sydney Swans, and let's see if Bice comes in. Vice captain, yes, we have 0.2% of teams. So I don't know the exact figure of that would be, but they have gone the Riley Bice VC. So that will be interesting if that pays off. I'll see if anybody's actually in the top 1% for that. Riley Bice, there is 0.2% again who have got them in the. So I'm trying to think. There's 1,800 people in the top 1%. So you've got like 118. That might be 36. Hang on, 10% would be 180. 1% would be 18. So it's probably either 1 or 2 people have gone there. Good luck to them. That'll be very interesting. Hey, Michael, if Cleary plays well, can we fade Hall and avoid? Yeah, I said that. It's not, don't force the Hall. Especially if you already used, like a couple of people messaged me, you already used 3 boosts or 4 boosts or something like that. Don't force it. But if you it's easier if it's just like part of your 2 trades that you're obviously using. But yeah, Cleary, if he plays well. And the great thing about it, you get to see how Cleary plays tonight. So if he spuds and gets a 30 and becomes pretty well a non-option for us, then you're 100% on Hall. Where if Cleary goes 60, 65 plus, then you're going him. And then if you're going to make the decision, you just sort of push it back a week So no, I don't. That is one advantage for them playing tonight. I don't really like Cheese. Sardis not being named is a disgrace. It is definitely a head scratcher for sure, mate. Supercoach wise, yes, it sucks. But as a Dons fan, for a young team that is rubbish, we need to get games into him. I wish he'd come out and say why he's not playing. So the knock still on Sardis, always in that draft year, was, and this is why he's like, because he was meant to be a top 5 guy, and he just slid and slid and slid. And so it wasn't. He was a top 5 guy. I'm thinking Hobbs. Yeah, Sardis was. Yeah, I don't understand why Sardis isn't then. Yeah, obviously there's something that Scott sees, and it's just not. Yeah, we obviously know he was a bit of a butcher as a young fella, but the fact he can get the ball, and you actually need somebody in there for contested. Maybe the Bombers haven't completely given up hope. They think, we can beat Melbourne. We'll come out and beat West Coast. We'll get on a roll. And but is this just going to be fool's gold again? This is the thing. Like, everybody wants to go out and win, and everybody wants to, like, you don't want to waste the season. And I've heard people say this to me multiple times. It's a bit different. Richmond, we've gone all in this rebuild, and I love the strategy because we've gone full on. Some people think it's probably too much, but at the same time, you're all in as a club. You know what you're doing before Tassie, and not doing it half-hearted. If you do it half-hearted, you end up being a mid-table team. So that's why I know a lot of the Bombers supporters are kind of thinking, because if Melbourne are going to suck and Essendon are going to potentially suck, you get 2 high picks. You've got another NGA kid who's apparently looking really good, and apparently there might be even another one. So, but at least one that's going to be actually quite high. So you could end up with 3 really high picks this year, and it does potentially start the rebuild. The obvious thought is, you tried that before with Perkins, Cox, and Reid. But maybe now that you've actually got a person in charge, it seems like he knows what the plan is and the whole club's behind it. It might be the way to go. But if the Bombers do come out and win some games, and then like, what could be the worst case scenario? Like, you guys finish 9th, 10th, 11th, and great. Like in this draft, which is not a deep draft, and you need a high pick. And they're talking about, I think Kel Toomey said it, there could be 15 players linked to NGAs or father sons or whatever in the first round this year. Like, the first round might go 30 picks. But all of a sudden, if you're in sort of that pick, 9, 10 territory, that could be coming sort of pick 15 or 16 or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, meh, like you'd nearly rather it just be like, play the kids. And if you win games, all well and good. But if you lose, like, so be it. Set the team up for a longer term with Tassie coming in. But anyway, I can understand the frustration, and you're not alone there, mate. Travis, I turned O'Driscoll into Horne-Francis and traded Campo into Clay Hall. Interested in your opinion? Yeah, that's cool. I've not gone back into the Horne-Francis trade, only because I think Port have got a fairly tough couple going. I know after that it opens up, but the whole Hawthorn Sydney part, and just because I'm more curious, especially maybe my mind slightly gets changed tonight with the Swans and how they play Warner, and I'm just trying to think where is he? He's in the guts, which does worry me, because I really want to see Warner and Petrarca get forward status, especially Warner. So if he does play bulk minutes in the midfield, maybe my mind changes a little bit there, but I'm still banking and hoping that Warner and Petrarca get forward status, and I'd probably rather them, even though Track isn't playing that well at the moment. Still, him as a forward, it's going to be hard to ignore. So just because of the way my forward's set up, and if I scroll back down there, it's like, again, like Rankin, like that was frustrating as an owner last night, because there was a couple of turnovers, a free kick given against him. But that game could have been a lot higher, especially because he got bugger all for that goal, which put them back into 10 points. So a little bit frustrating, but Rankin, McRae, Bailey Smith, Caleb Daniel. There's 4 of the best forwards there. And then I've got Marriage, who you never know if he keeps getting a lot of bulk kickouts and if West Coast keeps sucking, like he could be like Caleb Daniel and become a premium guy. So I might only have 1 spot. I might have 2 spots. So Horne-Francis isn't the end of the world for me to get back in there. And just hopefully he doesn't sort of punish me. But he only went sort of, was it 40? No, he went 50 in the second half last week, which is still good, but like the 103 was awesome, unreal. Like, played an amazing first half. Just don't see him doing that every week. The 30 touches, 3 goal game, that's pretty out there. Do I think Boyd will play? I don't think so. But do you trust clubs that there's a late change? Like, obviously Marshall's had a couple of issues this year. I'm just trying to see who else is in there. I don't think I've heard any other news about any other player carrying an injury, but so I don't think so. But interesting that they did add him to the list today. Was it just the fact that somebody was ill? Or was it the fact that, there's something in the works here? It's really hard to trust some of these coaches. So I'd, I'm not, I don't really want to be banking on that, because there'd be nothing worse. Sunday, 3:20, and then it's like, well, it'd be about 2:20. And news comes out that Boyd is coming in, especially it's his home state, back in his home state for gather round. Or it would make me nervous. That's all I'm thinking. I'll just skip to this one for a second. Is Boyd or Leak a safer loophole? I think definitely Leak is. Again, I haven't heard anything. The Giants, they're pretty settled down there. Taylor, Buckley, Himmelberg, unless somebody wakes up with a flu tomorrow, or they do a captain's run and tweaks an ankle or something like that. I think you're pretty confident Leak's not coming in. Leak will be an interesting one too. There's a lot of clubs chasing him next year. He does not have a spot in this Giants lineup. Like, you're not getting ahead of Taylor, Buckley, and it's a long time to wait. They need Himmelberg to sort of retire, or him to go back forward or something. So wouldn't it be? Oh, so not so that's Leak. I'm talking about Leak Aaliyah. So he's the one that's going to be on the radar. But James Leak, he's a safe. I think he's safe VC. So I was looking at Leak Aaliyah and talking about him. But James Leak again. So you'd have to have one of those midfielders come out and still, unless we hear something, I don't think they're going to make a change just the sake of making a change. The Giants are pretty transparent too. So that's good. Show us the back line. Did I have the back line up? So I am swapping between both here. Sorry, mate. There you go. That was a question there from Campbell. All right, I'll get back here. Travis, thoughts on Suitcase? Currently best averaging midfielder. I don't think he stays top 8. They've got options through there. He's never been that guy. The pressure comes off now because obviously they do have Will Ashcroft. But I think at some point, like he'll spend, he spends enough time sometimes down that wing. He's sometimes in there as that fourth banana. That'll drop. He got the boost because he obviously did play Richmond last week, which is a big one. But then he has also played West Coast. So they've had a couple of really easy games. And you look at that West Coast game, like he had 90 AF, but his Supercoach was through the roof. He played awesome against the Tigers, but it probably got the bump, the fact that he actually got 12 tackles because he was just catching our wingers, and the fact that he kicked the 2 goals. Like that's a lot. I think if you kind of look at a couple of the other games, I think that's more a McCluggage situation. I'm just trying to find where's the Geelong one's not a good one because their midfield got beaten up as well. Where is he against the Swans? That's probably a better. What do you do against the Swannies? Scrolling down, 21 touches, 80. Like, I don't think he's probably like more somewhere between that, 80 to 110. They'll have tougher games coming up. So I think if you'd started him, congratulations, because you've got those games. But now that their draw will get tougher, it's amazing that the Premier's got such a good start to the season. I'm not recommending jumping on McCluggage right now. And I think I was talking to Ben about that as well, and he expects that to drop back to some sort of normality. To have a career year when you've got other guys who are ahead of you in the midfield. The only thing with McCluggage, I've always said you'd jump on if they had a couple of significant injuries. So that's my thoughts there. Brayshaw, Brownlow, the only issue with that is Sarong and Brayshaw will probably take votes off each other, but you never know. Jackson might get a few because he is that flashy guy. A bit different as the way he sort of plays as a ruckman. But hey, it's not out of the question. I always say, who was the couple I suggested the other day when I got asked this question? Dacos, naturally. He's the guy that's going to get all the votes at Collingwood. You want teams that are going to win enough games, but don't have the normal guys stealing votes off each other. So I think it's the same issue with sort of Anderson and Rel at Gold Coast. As much as they've started off the season really well, they'll continue to steal votes off each other. So they'll win enough games and stuff. The big one I think is the Giants. if you want the smoky, it's Tom Green there. Probably racks them all up and they'll win plenty of games. And now, well, the Hawks has gone real different because Will Day could have been a real smoky. Now, if John Newcomb gets on a run, it'd be interesting sort of how Hawthorn votes go there. If Newcomb can get enough big games to sort of continue to be the 3 votes, or if the Hawks kind of just continue to sort of be that share it across the park. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Hawks sort of go with that sort of side of it. Who we got there? Is that Tic Tac Slice? Foss or Stone out for Clay Hall? I've actually been saying Foss, but Stone probably makes a lot more sense just because of his role and stuff like that. And the fact that Foss is back, like at least Foss should get defender status. Like Stone will get it as well, but yeah, Stone's obviously not really doing anything for us, so Stone's probably the obvious one there. I was more telling people to go Foss when they were asking me about Foss versus Laylaw. I'd much rather keep Lawler. Oh, sorry, I keep saying Lawler in that situation. Barlupa, would you boost out Callahan this week for George Hewitt? Chris was huge on to me about George Hewitt this year. Not this year, today. Because when I was doing all the analytics for Merrett versus Brayshaw, he kept throwing Hewitt to me. And Hewitt's got 2 awesome games coming up, West Coast and North. I love him as a footballer. He's never going to get the tag. Sometimes has to do the lockdown like he does on Dacos, but he still, finds the ball fine. So great player, obviously cheap enough. The problem is he going to be close enough to your Merretts and your Brayshaws and that? And a bit like McCluggage, it's going to come down at some point. I just can't see him going that sort of ridiculous price that he's going to be that sort of top line 8. But, funnier things that happen. There's always somebody that pops up, so you never know. But would it be, so I'm unsure if it's worth boosting Callahan before the price drop, and if it fits worth getting Hewitt before the raise. Could boost Darcy as well. Is that for Bulldogs? I'm gathering Bulldogs Darcy there. I guess if you need a forward. Obviously you don't think you must not have the money to get up to somebody like your Brayshaws, your Merretts. They're the ones I'm more thinking. The hard thing, okay, so when we're talking about the midfield and your best midfield today. Now, some people are going to want to go 9 deep, depending on what we want to do with the flex as the season goes on. Maybe it's a ruck person or whatever. So you've got Bont's going to come back at some point. We're going to want him. Butters, both of them are still, when they play, are up there as the 2 best midfielders we want to own. Nick Dacos, obviously, and he's going to get cheap enough, or we're just going to have to jump on. So you got those 3. You got your Brayshaw, Sarong, Merrett, Neil, Dunkley. So there's quite a few there, and that's before probably holding players like, say, maybe an Oliver. Maybe there's a couple other midfielders you kind of have. So where does your sort of Hewitts fit into that? Where does your McCluggages? That's not even mentioning, say, players like Tom Green. So I think Hewitt's going to be outside that top 10, and it's just how close can he get for that value? That's the only issue. But the fact, as you said, he's going to go up in price. He's got the next couple of games. It's a real point of difference. And even if you haven't burnt a lot of your trades, and maybe you've only used 1 boost so far, you could potentially go get him and at least ride him to the buys. The only problem is he does have that annoying first buy as well. Also, Rosie to Whitfield I like that, leaving 100K in the bank. As much as I think Rosie probably actually comes out and has a decent game this week against the Hawks. Like, Rosie, is he top 10? No, I started Rosie because I thought he'd have a great sort of 6 weeks, and then you can move him to Butters and Bond. It hasn't worked out that way. To jump on the guy who's probably the best defender in the game, I think that makes a way more sense. Connor Stone, who's a bag of trash, or Elijah, always injured. Hewitt, who goes for Clay Hall. Well, at least Connor Stone's playing. I think that's probably maybe the way to go. Stone's just frustrating. But maybe he gets a spike game at some point. Always go the guy who's not playing. So that's it. Middle pick Confucius also say man who walks sideways through turnstile at airport going to Bangkok. I love this. The interaction on these chats, guys, is always good. I love it. Maverick, don't think you mentioned who the out was for Brayshaw. Yeah, so no, it was Rosie. Yeah, I didn't have Finn Callahan. It was Rosie. So Rosie, I was perfect world. I wanted to hold a couple more weeks and just side swap him to Butters, but Rosie's gone for me. It's much for muchness. So the break even, I was never planning him to be long term. It's just a bit shorter term than I want, but geez. And he'll probably punish me this week and probably go really well, but still the break even's so high. Is he really going to go, 160? I don't see that happening. The bias fees he talked is utterly ridiculous. I know. Talk about overrating a pick. And he hopefully goes well. But again, he's still a rookie player in his third game or something. He's there as a cash maker for us. He's there as an on-field D4, D5. Short to marriage worth a trading, mate. It was last week. This week, it's a little bit like the good thing is they've got probably better matchups. So you could still get on marriage. I just don't like the whole boost for marriage now. And you are 50K behind everyone else for doing it. But it's shorts. I've got no words for short. Should be a much better player. I talk about Richmond players that could get traded at the end of the year. Friggin' trade short, please. Went short to Whitfield, but with Roberts starting on the bench and Bias taking points, should I trade Roberts over short? No, trade short. Roberts still, he's got a break even of 93. He could get that. Short, just such a frustrating player. I have to VC Bias this week. It was that or VC Sheesh, or maybe you're the one, Maverick, and make a call 40 minutes into that game. Yeah, okay. And I get it because of this whole boys situation. People are doing that for sure. And I know the footy is about to start. So Rosie and Callan out for me, for Merrett and Sarong. Yeah. And that's fine. I get the people trying to go Merrett because then you don't want the two Fremantle players. Absolutely no problems. It's not too aggressive, mate. Deepak, a lot of people are so aggressive. You kind of got to nearly play like that these days with all these traits. Lachlan, mid-primo this week, have Brayshaw. Don't want to go to Sarong. Already got Clark tossing up Merrett or Dunks. If you're tossing up between those two, it's Merrett. Zachy Merrett does have a great draw. It's just that I slightly like Brayshaw more, but I do kind of want to own Merrett. So sorry for losing. No, that's good. You're good in there, mate. Stephen, is it worth the boost to do short to Whitfield? To go get Whitfield, it is. Yes, it is. He's the man. Help my man. Should he bring in Cam McKenzie using a boost? No. It's nearly better for Ward. If Warple wasn't in, then I would have said sure. But the fact that Warple's back, meh. What's the chance of Matt Flynn getting against Subiaco? Jeez. He is, they've gone out to get him to come play ruck, and that's lasted all of 1 week. Wow. Flynn, I can do Nod and Flynn to Gawn and Dudley. So I'm not a huge fan of Dud, but at least he's playing against Richmond, small forward. He could definitely score points. You're going out to get a Gawn who's dropped in price. It's a tough matchup always against the Bombers, but I think that is fine. Swank, Merrett, Neil, or Green. I can afford any of the mids. Merrett versus Neil. That's a toss of the coin. They're both probably going to get some attention as well. But I think Neil's slightly better. Merritt's run's still good. Oh, God, I don't know how to pick that out between them. You kind of want all of them. At least, what is Neil's break even? Still, he's up against the Dogs who do give up points to the midfield. Neil's break even is 145. So go get Merrett. That's an easy one, actually, in the end. Field Kako or SPP. I am trying to loophole that, but I'm probably not going to have a loophole. So I'm going SPP with absolutely no confidence in that at all. Literally no confidence. Kako is probably actually the one. I might even swap that over. Actually, I did have that swapped over. I don't actually know why I ended up swapping that back. So I think Kako, probably playing against Melbourne. That probably makes a lot more sense, actually, against the Hawks. Against the Who's Whiz. Did I miss that? Boyd name emergency. Is he still? Yeah, it's a worry. I try not to be having your whole life on Boyd this week. The fact they've brought him into the squad, it probably won't play, but there has to be some concern there for the loophole. It is a problem. Unless you've got maybe you're captaining somebody out of that. If you're captaining somebody out of that GWS or St Kilda game, so say you've got Whitfield, I think Sinks is going to get tagged, so maybe it's McRae. Say one of those guys. You can do it and wait because you'll know if Boyd's thingy or not. And then you've also got the backup option. So that is probably something there. Nod, Callahan, Rosie to Hall, Marriage, and Whitfield. This would be the fourth boost is a bit, but at the same time, it is Hall, Marriage. Oh, God. because you're still going down one. Is there a way you can just do Nod and Rosie to Hall and Whitfield? Like, you should have enough cash to do that. I'd probably nearly hold Callahan in that case. Whitfield or Merrett, I already have Sinclair in mid. Zorko, Clark, Sheasel, Roberts. Oh, you've got that many defenders. Go and get Merrett. As much as I love Whitfield, but the fact you've already got Sinclair there, so that you've got 1, 2, 3, technically 4 plus the 5th premium. I think you could definitely wait on that. And lucky last, because the game has probably started, trade or hold Finn Callahan. It only depends if you're how many boosts you got, who are you going with as well. So some people, if you're going up to Finn's got to become, so the whole like going Finn down to marriage, I'd rather just hold Finn because of that. The bigger question is, you want to turn him into a premium. If you're going to do it like a legit, like obviously his last 2 weeks have been really poor. Saints, it's not getting easy, but he actually looked better against a couple of those, maybe a couple of the better teams. But yeah, it is a concern. So if you're going to trade him, no problems at all, but get him up to one of the premiums, get him up to Neil, get him up to Merrett, Sarong, one of those guys who you can actually captain. All right, guys, enjoy the game, and I'll be back next week. Catches.